نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. This short video is to address a question: does eye drops used during fasting in Ramadan break your fast? Does it make your roza and your fast fasid? The simple answer to this is no. Now, of course, after having given you the answer, it must be validated. First of all, the rule of Hanafi fiqh is that anything which enters your stomach via the mouth or the rear passage breaks your fast. Anything which passes your throat also breaks your fast. So the idea is that anything which enters your throat and stomach via a large hole, a large opening, such as the mouth and the esophagus or the rear passage, that is what will render a fast invalid and will break your roza. However, based on this rule of the classical fuqaha, which has been narrated by all the akabir scholars and the classical scholars, modern anatomy and science actually tells us that when we use eye drops in our eyes, it does not enter our body through large holes but through small pore-like holes. The anatomy of our eyes is such that in our eyelids there are two very small openings, almost like pores, which the doctors call the lacrimal punctus, and it is through this that the excess fluid drains when we apply eye drops or other things such as kohl and surma into our eyes. This fluid drains through these tiny pores into a sac where it's collected. From there it drains through the nasal canal, where it then ends up into the back of our throats. That's why often when we use eye drops or medication in our eyes, it can be tasted. For the same reason, when kohl or surma is applied in the eyes, you can spit out after a few minutes and you can actually see the blackness from the kohl which has appeared in your saliva through that very process. However, even though this material from the eye drops, this substance, appears in the back of the throat, this does not break the fast. For what reason? Because it does not enter the body through the mouth or through any other hole or large cavity, but it enters through a small pore-like hole which is called the lacrimal punctus. Similarly, when we apply lotions, creams, oil onto our body, that also does not invalidate the fast. The reason for that is because even these items, they do enter our bodies through the skin, but the entry through the skin is through the pores, small tiny holes in our skin. Via this it can enter our vascular system, our bloodstream, and enter our bodies. Despite this, the application of oils, creams and lotions, etc. are still valid in the Hanafi madhab. They do not break your fast for the same principle that I stated at the beginning, that they have not entered the mouth via large holes, entered the body via large holes, and they have not crossed the throat, nor have they entered the stomach in that way. With regards to the eye drops, it can be argued that yes, that does enter the stomach, it can be swallowed. However, this is then corroborated by qiyas from ahadith. There are numerous ahadith where the Prophet ﷺ used kohl in his blessed eyes, surma, and he did this during fasting whilst he was in the halat-e-thawm. And in a hadith narrated by Tirmidhi, there was a Sahabi who came to the Prophet ﷺ who was suffering from an ailment of the eyes. The Prophet ﷺ instructed this Sahabi to use kohl and surma as a medication to cure the ailment of his eyes. If the use of kohl or surma invalidated the fast, the Prophet ﷺ would never have used it himself, nor would the blessed Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam have instructed one of his companions to do the same. This instruction was for the ummah to come to educate us that this application of medication, surma, etc. in our eyes, even though it does enter our body, because of course the Prophet ﷺ knew that surma can be detected in the back of the throat. If the Sahaba had spat out a few minutes later, there would have been blackness in the back of the throat, potentially. However, the Prophet ﷺ recognized that this is the process through which that substance enters the body. In other words, through small pore-like structures and not through holes, and therefore that does not invalidate the fast. It is on this qiyas that it has been ruled by modern fuqaha with modern information regarding the anatomy of the eye that it is permissible to use eye drops, etc. Now, some fuqaha over the years have ruled that the use of eye drops is not permissible, and this is actually based on the rulings from the classical scholars. However, those rulings have been based on the information which was available at the time with regards to anatomy and biology. The fuqaha thought that the medication from the eyes entered the back of the mouth and the throat through large openings. They actually didn't understand that it was through pores, and that is why there was actually a contradiction, because even though they excluded the use of eye drops during fasting, they still accepted the fact that it was permissible and in fact sunnah to use kohl and surma. So there was actually a contradiction in their ruling. That contradiction has now been reconciled with the modern understanding that it isn't actually entered into the mouth or the back of the throat via openings, but through the lacrimal punctus, which are small pore-like structures in the eye through which excess fluid drains away from the eye. So that's the masla pertaining to eye drops and medication. Now, as an adjunct to this is the use of contact lenses, which of course have been washed in lens cleaning solutions. Again, on the same basis, this would be permissible. However, the use of eye drops and kohl surma for the Sahaba in the hadith I've narrated from Tirmidhi Sharif was based on the use as medication. In other words, there was a problem with the eye. Therefore, my personal suggestion would be that even though the masla is the use of lenses is permissible, if an individual can get away with not using the contact lenses and in fact use glasses and spectacles, then as a matter of taqwa, that would actually be better. But if anybody was to use contact lenses during fasting, putting them in, taking them out, then that would be permissible. I hope this clears up understanding. There is one other issue which people have raised with regards to the numerous ahadith about the Prophet ﷺ using kohl, and with regards to the instruction to the Sahaba. They raise a question about the sihhat, the validity of those ahadith. However, all the Aima Arba and over the jurists who founded the 4 schools of jurisprudence and all the fuqaha over the centuries have accepted these ahadiths, and due to the unanimous nature of the acceptance of these ahadith, the fuqaha have ruled that istidlal from these ahadith, in other words, ascertaining rules regulations and laws deriving and doing istinbat from these ahadith is perfectly valid according to the science of usul hadith. Therefore, those objections which are raised by some of the scholars are actually unfounded, and if they are raising those objections, then they should go back to the fuqaha, the Aima Arba, and all the fuqaha since then who have accepted and ruled that on the unanimous nature of the acceptance of these hadiths and the usul of hadith, istidlal can be done from those ahadith. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to conduct ourselves in the best manner during the month of Ramadan, and for this conduct to be passed on in our behavior after Ramadan. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.